Hi, my name is Yilin Zhang, Team Rayceen Productions host and moderator. Joining us today is Council Member Kenyan McDuffie. Welcome, Council Member. How are you today?
I am doing excellent. It is so good to be with you again.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for making the time to be with us today. And would love to start off with you telling us a little bit about your background and experiences.
Sure, absolutely. As you mentioned, my name is Kenyan McDuffie. I'm actually a fourth generation Washingtonian. I'm a husband, I'm a father of two daughters, and I'm also was elected as a Democrat to represent Ward 5 on the Council of the District of Columbia 10 years ago. And I'm running to be your next at-large council member to create safer neighborhoods with really greater economic opportunities for every resident across our city, regardless of where they're from. And just a little bit more about me and my background. I actually grew up during the 1980s and 1990s in the District of Columbia and saw firsthand just the tough toll that violence and drugs and addiction and hopelessness took on our city. And it was really an opportunity for me that changed everything. It was an opportunity to be a mail carrier, interestingly enough, with the United States Postal Service that literally changed my life's trajectory and put me on a path to become the first man in my family to graduate from college, to work for Congressman Eleanor Holmes Norton, to go on and graduate from law school and be a civil rights attorney at the United States Department of Justice. And so it is that really mix of experiences with deep roots in our city and professional experience. But it's really my desire to improve my own community and change the odds of people struggling in my neighborhood that led me to run for public office. And so I've been serving Ward 5 for the last 10 years, and I'm running today because now more than ever, we need council members who are bold leaders with a track record of delivering real results to create a city that is safer and more equitable and more inclusive for all Washingtonians.
Thank you, Council Member. And so you have a strong law and legislative background. As you mentioned, you've served on the DC Council as the Ward 5 Council Member the last decade, and you've served as the Ward 5 Council Member as a Democrat. Can you tell us a little bit more about what led you to the decision to run for at-large DC Council as an independent, and why this year?
Because I love my city, because I wanted to continue to serve the residents of the District of Columbia, because it is truly an honor to do so. Being on the council isn't just a job for me. It is actually the ability to be a trustee of the people in the District of Columbia, and public service is my passion and it's my purpose. I had a job working for the Department of Justice in the Civil Rights Division, which at the time was my dream job. But every morning I had to get up and walk through my own neighborhood and see people continue to struggle. And I wanted to do something about it. It's what led me to become a civic association president and then go on to run for council in the first place. But changing my party affiliation to be an independent to run in this general election was really an extension of my desire to continue to serve on the Council of the District of Columbia and really come up with solutions to address intractable issues across our city, from public safety to housing affordability to issues around homelessness, as well as creating more opportunities for residents who love their city but feel like the city doesn't love them back because they're being marginalized or being pushed out even of the District of Columbia. And so I'm fighting for them in this race to become one of the next at-large council members in the city.
And thank you for that. And you've just created a great segue to our next question. So you talked about safety, housing, and addressing our homelessness crisis. Can you elaborate a little bit more on your top 3 issues and what you're hoping to change once elected?
Sure. I mean, it's more than what are my top 3 issues. It's more about what are the issues that people have said are priorities for them, because I'm amplifying the voices of residents across the District of Columbia. And what I'm being told when I'm out knocking on doors, meeting residents is that public safety, housing affordability are some of the most important issues impacting them across the District of Columbia. And economic opportunity is something that more residents want at a time where they're seeing prosperity all around them. And so, as I mentioned, when I grew up in the 1980s and 1990s, people were leaving the city. It was unsafe to be here. The national news media referred to Washington, D.C. as the murder capital of the United States. And when I graduated from high school, from our DC public schools, Woodrow Wilson High School was now called Jackson Reed, I couldn't even get a job in this city. And I don't want that for anybody else who are coming through our public schools. And so I'm really working to make sure that our city is safe, to make sure that as we continue to put in resources and invest in economic growth, that we're focusing on those communities that have been disconnected from that prosperity, that we're creating economic opportunities for residents as well. But when it comes to public safety, we have to recognize we need to focus on accountability and opportunity. We need to focus on holding people who commit crimes accountable so that our justice system works for victims and it works for the broader community as a victim, and that we're addressing the root causes of crime and creating opportunities for people who live in communities that have been plagued by violence for so long. And so I'm working on public safety. Housing is an issue that is affecting a lot of folks who can't afford to be here. And I'll just say briefly, I'm actually, appearing before this Zoom, sitting in a home that my grandparents bought back in 1952. And they bought this home for $5,000. And yet the house right next door sold several months ago for $900,000. And one a block away sold for $1.2 million. Most people who live in this city or want to live in this city can't afford housing of that cost. And so I've legislated bills that have sent hundreds of millions of dollars to our Housing Production Trust Fund in order to preserve existing affordable housing that we have, but also to build new affordable housing across incomes so that people can live here and work here, raise their family here, and thrive right here in our city.
Absolutely. So what I'm hearing is your campaign is really focused on listening to the voters, listening to the residents, and addressing the root causes, creating systemic change so that everyone, no matter what zip code they live in, where they're born, that they can thrive in our community.
That's it. We need council members, legislators who are deeply rooted, who are going to represent residents across all 8 wards, who are going to show up for them, right? And that's exactly what I have a track record of doing. As a Ward 5 council member, I have made it my business to improve the lives of people across my ward, and I will do the same thing across the District of Columbia if elected at large. And I'm going to continue to fight to make our city more racially equitable, more socially just, and more economically inclusive.
Wonderful. Well, that leads us to our next question, council member, is why are you the best choice for voters?
That's a great question. There's a saying, show me your budget and I'll show you what you care about. On the council, I make sure that our city has invested hundreds of millions of dollars to repair and to build new affordable housing, as I mentioned earlier. When it comes to closing one of the widest racial wealth gaps of any city in the United States, I've looked at people who've been trapped in a cycle of poverty. And I authored a bill called the Child Wealth Building Act. We call it baby bonds for short, right? And so baby bonds is designed to take kids who are born into families making up to 300% of the federal poverty level and giving every single one of them an account that we put up to $1,000 in. It accrues interest over 18 years. And when those kids who are born into poverty in the District of Columbia turn 18 years old, they're gonna have $20,000, $25,000 waiting for them to invest in themselves, to get further education, whether it is traditional college or a trade, to maybe put a down payment on a home, to start a small business. These are the types of wealth building activities that far too many people across the District of Columbia who are trapped in a cycle of poverty don't get to experience. And we want to make sure that we're focusing using all the tools of government to give them a better opportunity and a brighter future. voters have trusted me to serve them because they can connect with my pragmatic, balanced, comprehensive approach to leadership and see the effective work that I put in to help improve the conditions of communities across Ward 5 and other parts of the District of Columbia. And I'm proud of what I've been able to accomplish for residents across all 8 wards as a native Washingtonian. I am working for people who've been here for 30 years, as well as people who've been here for 3 years or 3 months. Newer residents, working class residents, middle class residents, young people, senior citizens across all of our wards. And I think that's the type of leadership that people want, that reflects their values, who are going to engage them and meet them where they are with bold and innovative policies that will directly impact them and create safer neighborhoods with greater opportunities for every resident.
Yes, and thank you for sharing your background, the work that you have focused on, and your vision for the future. So time has really flown by. Can you share with our audience, when does voting begin?
Well, ballots have already gone out. The Board of Elections has already started to mail every registered voter a mail-in ballot. And so they're going to get that mail-in ballot in their mailboxes. I've already got mine. In fact, it's right here with me right now. And so I want to make sure that every voter, regardless of party affiliation, understands they get to choose 2 candidates for at-large council member. And I'm asking to be one of your votes. You can submit your vote by mail now. If you've already received your mail-in ballot, you can also place your ballot in drop boxes around the city, which are going to open up on October 14th. If you want to vote in person, but don't want to wait longer lines on election day, you can vote early starting on October 31st through November 6th. And remember, the general election is Tuesday, November 8th. So make sure you and your loved ones and your neighbors, family and friends make a plan on how to vote. And remember, again, you have 2 votes for at-large council member. And I'd like you to rate Kenyan McDuffie one of those votes. I'm number 4 on the ballot.
Absolutely, yes. There are multiple ways to vote. As council member mentioned, you can drop your ballots at these drop boxes, which will open on Friday, October 14th. You can vote early, which is highly recommended, and also vote on November 8th. So council member, for the at-large DC council seat, voters can select 2 candidates. Have you endorsed anyone, and who have you decided to cast your second vote for?
Well, I haven't voted yet. I'm not going to tell folks how to cast their second vote. I'm just going to ask them to make me their first vote. If you vote Kenyan McDuffie, number 4 on the ballot.
Absolutely. And most importantly, voters, please remember that you can and please do vote for 2 candidates for the at-large DC council seat. And for our viewers everywhere, for voters everywhere, you can find more voting information and how to register to vote at headcount.org. That is headcount.org. So Councilmember McDuffie, how can our audience members, how can voters, how can they learn more about your campaign, and how can they support you in these remaining weeks?
I would love for folks to hop online and learn more about me, my background, my track record, and my campaign at www.mcduffiefordc.com. That's McDuffieFordC.com. My Instagram and Twitter are at KRMcDuffie. And if you'd like to support the campaign, we have a very energetic team, and we're always welcoming new volunteers. So you can sign up on our website, and of course, you can make any other support that you'd like to be able to do as well right there on that website.
Thank you very much, Councilmember McDuffie. So viewers, you can find the links in the description below. And thank you, Councilmember Kenyan McDuffie, who is running for at-large DC Council. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks again for having me. It was such a pleasure to be with you.
Viewers, please follow Team Rayceen on social media and subscribe to the Team Rayceen YouTube channel. Most of all, thank you for watching.